I wonder whether you've been through some tough times, faced some challenges in life, and then you came out of it. Now that's life, but not everyone makes it. Not everyone is as courageous to come out of it, and not everyone have the opportunity to come out of it and tell us that they overcame an adversity. Now, our guest today is going to tell us about that overcoming adversity. This is Now Tell Us, and I'm your host, Anthony Moirore. At Now Tell Us, we have guests come and tell us stories, inspires, give us some insights into a passionate subject of their own. And always we have great guests. Our guest today is known as Victoria Pelletier. She's a great guest. She's an executive coach. She's a lot of things that I even can't start talking about. An executive. She's a speaker. She's an author, and she's passionate about diversity and inclusion. Also, a personal brand network and networking expert, and is a board director. Now, I won't speak much more than that because she'll tell us the rest of it. So, without taking one more minute, I'm going to go and meet her, and I welcome you to join me as we go and meet her to hear about overcoming adversity with Victoria. Here we go. Hello, Victoria.
Hi, Anthony. Thanks for having me on today.
Yes, welcome to Now Tell Us. You,
It's
you,
great to be
you're,
here.
you are going to tell us a lot of things, and we are excited to have you here with us. We know the things that you have accomplished, and I'm just humbled to be in your presence today. So, wow, that's an accomplishment. And but let's first and foremost know who is Victoria. Where are you based? First and foremost.
So, Victoria Pelletier, and I am currently based in Miami Beach, Florida.
Uh huh.
I jokingly, tell people that I am one of those people, and I say that because if you're in the U.S., everyone knows that New Yorkers flocked south to escape COVID and the restrictions, and I'm one of those people. Although I originally hail from Canada, I'm a proud Canadian.
Oh, wonderful and beautiful. And how's the new year taking you? We're just halfway through the first month.
I was really, really hoping that 2023 would be amazing given how challenging 2022 was for me. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been good. We celebrated the new year with friends. We're recent empty nesters as my youngest has moved in with my oldest. However, I'm just getting over COVID. So, like, that's how I'm starting my 2023. So, not a great start, but I'm one of the fortunate ones who didn't hit me too hard, and I'll be coming out of it soon.
Oh, get well soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, we wish you all the best. Now, please tell us a bit. Uh, let the audience know exactly who is Victoria right now.
So you gave a little bit of my bio or the titles that I carry, Anthony.
Mm.
And so yes, I'm a career-long corporate executive. Interestingly, I started working at age 11, and by 14, I was already in management, senior management by 20, and then by 24, I became the chief operating officer of a company just a few months after I had given birth to my first child. So I've been doing this for a very long time. But the things I'm most proud about is actually my sort of maniacal focus on having a really human-centered leadership approach and building really positive cultures. And a big part of that is, as you said, I'm my work around diversity and inclusion. I've been sitting on boards for a number of years, not for profits to start, and continue to do that, as well as for profit boards. And then I began my public speaking career probably 20 years ago, more from just a pure business perspective. And then the last 10 from a platform in which I'll say it brings me a lot of joy, sharing more of my story. And it is that story that is the part of you want me to share with your audience here today. And I'm happy to, around overcoming some pretty extreme adversity, being very resilient, and learning how to have a healthier level of resilience, and in the steps you need to take, and showing that you can be, my word, unstoppable, right?
Mm,
Making, I believe we all have choices, and how we choose to react and respond in a certain moment, and how we choose to move forward. So that's
mm.
the high level of who Victoria is, besides also saying, a wife, a mother, a soon to be fur baby, as I'm fostering some puppies, fur baby mom, who's
Mm.
like a fitness fanatic and a bit of a foodie. That's me.
Oh, that's beautiful and quite an introduction. Now, uh, talking of flying high, as high as you fly, and then mentioning, giving us a clue that there is an adversity that you have overcome. How big adversity has it been? Let's just go right there.
Well, it starts from my youth, and I actually think that's what has really informed and has made me who I am today.
Mm,
So, Anthony, I'm born to a drug addicted teenage mother who was extremely abusive to me. I
mm,
was put in and out of the foster care system a couple of times, although I was quite young and I don't necessarily remember those. What I do remember are the times I was with her, where pushing me up and downstairs. I had a cigarette in my eye. I wore a patch for a number of months. I'm fortunate, though, that I was actually removed from her care permanently and adopted to a loving family. But the abuse from the person who's supposed to protect you from all of that the most, right? A parent, your mother,
mhm,
that scarred me. It made me a really tough kid, for sure. Always afraid of fear and rejection. And although I was, in a loving household, my parents, were not well off. My dad was a janitor, my mom a secretary. So I remember my mom telling me at, I think I was probably 10 or 11 years old, she's like, Tori, you have to do better than us. And she actually meant socioeconomically. But what
mm,
I'll tell you is that well, one, she never needed to tell me those words, because I was determined, even if I couldn't articulate it and be verbal around it, I knew I wanted to be better than my biology, or the circumstance I was within.
mhm,
And I continued to have a lot of obstacles. I was raped in my teens. Um, and so chose to, move past that and still want to be involved and have loving, relationships. Divorced. My ex passed away of, just a few years after we got divorced. So I became a truly, truly single parent and needed to deal with my children, and, how they would deal with the death of a parent. I am remarried now, which is great. But even 2022 for me was, started with, my youngest has mental health issues, is bipolar. And so it was a roller coaster ride. My husband had back surgery. My father-in-law passed away suddenly. I was in a serious accident for which I had two surgeries last year. I was in a wheelchair for a while. So it's just a lot. But all of these things is where I've chosen to be extremely resilient in this unstoppable nature for me. I have a saying and a hashtag I sign a lot of my social media posts, which is no excuses. My children hate that. But for
mm,
me, that's because all of this has happened and I've chosen to pick myself back up and move forward and be a better version of myself and learn from those experiences and be the kind of person that I want to be. And so, changing the cycle, when they talk about abuse in family cycles, changing that, but also who I became coming out of, a secretary and a janitor as parents, was all around the choice I made, and who I wanted to be and how to be a better person.
mm. Wow, quite a story. Now, getting just becoming someone who is very active in employment at 11 years old. What led to that, and what was that first occupation that was that 11 years old? Whoever starts working at 11 years old?
Yeah, well, it wasn't just babysitting. That's the common job for, young 11, 12-year-olds. But I worked at a hair salon. And the reason is I'm although my parents, weren't well off, I never had to worry about going unclothed or unfed, but it everything I mean, I never got to go on my school field trips, my graduation trips, all those sorts of things. But anything extra I wanted, I would need to buy. So
Mm-hmm.
I got a job to be able to afford. I think I wanted like the Sony Walkman. I'm aging myself. I'm in my mid 40s. I wanted this a Sony Walkman, right? So to get that, I had to
I
work. So
remember
that's
that.
the yellow ones, like
Yeah.
they're
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And so that's where it stemmed from. So I worked at a hair salon doing everything except dealing with hair, sweeping the floors and making appointments and handling the cash and doing the laundry. But I quickly realized um, that was a place where it felt like I had a little bit more control, in terms of how I showed up. It was about my work ethic, what I would learn, and how well I performed. And so that for me was a place where I knew I could shine. And so that became a differentiator for me, and a place that I chose. And that's probably why I've almost always worked multiple jobs. I don't know a 40-hour work week, to be honest, in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so, because I could work hard, I could earn. I bought my first house at 19, but that's after seeing my parents go bankrupt in my teenage years. And so for me, it was just always like, I'm going to choose to do better. I'm going to do things differently. And so from there, it was from that first job, I then went to work in retail. I worked in a shoe store, and I became the assistant manager when I was 14.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just kind of like progressed and snowballed from there.
Wow. Wow. Now, with all these adversities, starting the challenges that you faced through during your youth, and then moving into your marriage and facing divorce and death, and taking a special care of a special kid. I mean, and you're still smiling, you're still moving up. What gives you the strength? How do you overcome those? And that's why we are here to hear from you. Now tell us.
Well, so I'll tell you, Anthony, I don't think I always handled it well. I mean,
Mm,
I've always been able to handle a lot. My best friend has nicknamed me Turtle, right? A very tough exterior, this hard shell that can handle a lot, but inside I'm just all real soft and marshmallowy. And so
mm,
that but that's actually not the best way to be resilient if you want a long, happy, healthy life. And so for me, I'd say my early years were building up walls around myself. As I said, I was afraid of being rejected, of being hurt. And so I was always cautious over how much of myself I shared. Was I going to be
mm,
vulnerable? I wouldn't have told the story I tell today so openly.
mm,
And I had to learn to find a healthier way to be resilient, particularly as an adult, as some of these things came my way. And so for me, what I learned is there's a series of steps to being resilient in a healthy fashion. So the first thing is I will never say that don't feel the emotion that comes when something. So like I cry at like the Humane Society commercials on TV. I'm like extremely emotional, but I allow myself to have those emotions. But then I move forward. I have a goal set for myself. Whatever the goal is, whether it's personal, it's professional, like that's my anchor. Right? So if
mm,
something happens, let's say there's a failure at work, well, okay, well, let's anchor on what's the goal I have in terms of the next role I want, or what is it I need to deliver from one of my clients. So that's the goal. Give myself permission to fail at some point in the process, but also build a plan for just one foot in front of the other,
mm,
quite quite frankly. And
mm,
then I also have learned to really surround myself with great people who will support me.
mhm,
But another important piece of this resilience is being very like reflective and looking inward. So the one thing I hated for my adoptive mother, my mom, that did when I was young, is she'd constantly make me understand why I had the feelings and emotions. She'd sit me down and talk for hours, and I hated it. But she's like, Tori, you have to understand, like when I would react a certain way. And that's has helped me now, because when I'm feeling an emotion or I'm very quick to respond a certain way, I spend time reflecting. And my time is normally in the morning at the gym. I work out 6 days a week. And
mhm,
so I go in the gym and I've got my headphones on, and whether I'm listening to music or a podcast or whatever, it's still a very reflective moment for me to think about the prior day, to think about what I want to accomplish, and think about how I'm feeling, how I've reacted, and what I need to do differently. And sometimes it means leaning into like the thing that's made me uncomfortable, whether that's the emotion and knowing that I have to show up a different way. I have to share some of those emotions. I need to be vulnerable, or
Mm.
I just need to start thinking and modeling the kind of thought, action, and language to get me where I want to be.
Mm. Now, with those experiences, the challenges that you faced, which one do you consider your most toughest, the most toughest that you've been through?
Yeah, I think from the surface, a lot of people would say that it's my youth, the abuse in my early years, and it's probably what's created a lot of who I am today. However, that for me wasn't probably the most difficult. I mean, that was a lot of that was done to me. Most difficult for me, honestly, was at 33, I decided to leave my ex. My children were 5 and 9 years old, and it took me years to make that decision. I'd been debating it for a couple of years, not, um, unhappy, my ex was not abusive, like, there was none of that. I just knew I wasn't fulfilled. The person that I married, at when I was tw I met we met when I was 22. So at
Mm-hmm.
33 years old, I'd grown into a very different woman. My ex was many, many years older than me, so it was pretty much the same. So it was one of those, it's not you, it's me kind of things. And I
Mm-hmm.
debated it because I knew it was going to create this incredible upheaval in my family's life. But I had to think about, and I felt selfish at some point, but then I realized I was trying to create um, for a future for my children in how I would want them to grow up in if they choose to be partnered with someone, to be in a fulfilling relationship, one that makes them happy and brings them, joy. And truly the best word to say is fulfilled. And I needed to model that for them. And I wasn't. And so that was incredibly difficult for me. Like I said, it actually took me almost 2 years to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but and it was actually coming out of that in the next couple of years where I feel like I flourished as an individual. I was starting to reclaim a lot more of who Victoria was, and not just the mask that I wore for everyone else, but who I was going to become. And that's actually when even the public speaking I do became very different. I I couldn't share my journey both in leadership and how I'd gotten there and how I had adjusted my leadership style,
Mm-hmm.
and me coaching and mentoring others to follow their passions and do what brings them joy if I didn't do it myself. So
Mm-hmm.
that for me has been the most difficult, but it's actually brought me the most growth, and most personal and probably professional development and fulfillment as a result of that choice and the actions I've taken since.
And I think I can understand you. The challenge in that is that you're making a decision that is not only yours, but is involving some other people, some other dependents of you. So, whatever chance that you're going to take, any decision that you're going to make is going to be a huge one, not just, I mean, so
Yeah.
I get it, and I get it. It must have been a very tough one. Now, I came across a book known as Unstoppable, which I discovered that you're a part of. Can you please tell us about it?
Yeah, a good friend of mine in Kichi, she got me connected to the publishers of this book.
Mm,
And when I found out that this was the title, Unstoppable, and about change makers who dare to do things differently, I'm like, okay, I'm in, I'm in, I'm in. And so I was a contributor to this book, but actually the publishers surprised me by making me the first chapter in the book
mm,
to open it up to
mm,
the rest. And that has a lot to do with my story and sharing, and sort of the courage to live is what I talk about, in that book. That's the title of the chapter.
mm,
And so
mhm,
that's the foray into, Victoria sharing so openly, and the precursor to what will be my own book at some point while I have a little bit more time to write it.
mm. And we wish you a good experience writing your own book. You've got a lot to share. You definitely have got a lot to share. Now, you're talking to people and they are listening, and we want to thank all the people who are out there. We have a few. Jane has said hello. Thank you, Jane. And all those of you out there, if you have something to ask, please do. If you have a comment, we appreciate your feedback. And keep sharing this video with all your friends, and even if you get to listen to this after we are through on the podcast platforms that we upload, please share it with your friends. We appreciate. Now, we have Victoria with us. and she is telling us about overcoming adversity. Now, um, do you work with individuals, or do you just work with companies?
I work with both. So
Okay.
my day job is as an executive for Accenture, which
Okay.
is arguably the world's largest consulting technology and services firm. We're 750,000 individuals. And there I work with, you know, corporate clients and their employees or their customers, solving problems for them. So I have the benefit of working with other large companies, but at the end of the day, we all know that we do business with people that we like and we trust, and therefore we want to do business with. So I
Mm-hmm.
always view an engagement that we have as, you know, myself and my team solving a problem or a challenge for this group of individuals and this company. I do also have a small amount of work that I do just on a one-to-one basis, usually by referral only, to do either personal brand coaching or executive coaching to people that again are referred to me. And then, of course, I do a ton of coaching and mentoring as part of my day job, both formally and quite honestly informally. Again, it's something that I really enjoy doing. I wish there's a lot of things career-wise that I wish my 20-year-old self would have known. And so, if I can save any of those newcomers in the work world any of that pain by giving them some of my leadership advice and sharing my failures so they don't make them, I'm happy to do that.
That's beautiful. Now, at the end of the episode, we're going to share some contact information that people can reach you through. But before we go there, this is Now Tell Us. We are talking about overcoming adversity with Victoria. Now, do you maybe have a point form that you would leave the listeners with uh, ideas of overcoming of adversity? What would you say? One, two, three, four, then take this, do that, go there, have
Ah,
this.
yeah. Well, so I kind of briefly touched on it, but if I were to say it, I think there's really like probably four or five key things that I think are important. So the first
Mm,
is I do think it's incredibly important to have a goal or an objective for yourself. I'm
mm,
not necessarily like the vision board type person. That doesn't work for me, but that works very well for many people to, you know, see it manifested in front of them all the time. But for me,
mm,
I'm very clear. So I know, you know, for 2023, I have goals in terms of that I want to achieve. So I'd encourage everyone to create some of those, and not just because we're at the beginning of the new year and it's like New Year's resolutions. I think it's important to be doing that and iterating on it all the time. Um,
mm,
that's what I think you can go and anchor back to when something happens, when an obstacle or challenge or some adversity comes your way.
mhm,
The next is that element of, as I said, self reflection, right? I think
mm,
it's critically important that we look inwardly or at the person that stares at us in the mirror to understand um, in
mhm.
that.
Yeah. I think
Um,
there was an issue with the network, but anyway, keep going.
okay. So, like looking inwardly, you know, being really reflective of what do we need to do better to handle this situation and move forward. And then the
Mm,
next step is model the the thoughts, the actions, and the behavior that takes you one step forward. And then giving yourself permission to fail is another. And then I'd say the fifth um, point is surrounding yourself with people that will support you. I've tried to live drama free as much as possible. Like stuff's going to happen, people who are around me, but that doesn't mean I don't have people who challenge me greatly.
mm,
Who I can be self reflective, but there's always going to be something that I want to be candid and share that with me, so that I can be better.
mm. Wow, thank you. Despite the challenges that we are having in the episode, we keep going because we are talking about overcoming adversity. So whether the network gives us an issue, we still keep on sharing. And you've had the tips that Victoria shared with you at Now Tell Us, and you can go and apply them in your own life. I know many people would have been very, I mean, defeated that when they have gone through what Victoria has gone through. Now, let me ask you, during COVID, where were you? What were you doing? What happened?
I was in New York, and so it was one of the, well, no, there's lots of places around the world, but if we look in North America, I
Mm-hmm.
know you're in Europe. In North America, there were some places where it was incredibly strict in terms of lockdown. So
Mm-hmm.
I had just relocated back to the US a matter of months before COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was in an apartment, thankfully one that at least had a balcony so we could get outdoors when everything else was shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it was tough. I had some challenges with my younger one, and some of the mental health issues that came up actually were exacerbated by COVID for my youngest. And then my son, who was in Canada in college, couldn't cross the border at some point because he wasn't vaccinated, whatever. So for me, I mean, we tried to make the best of it. Uber Eats got a lot of our share of wallet because we ordered in a lot. And but we also made opportunity. We travel a lot around those electric scooters, the ones you stand on. And
Mm-hmm.
my husband wasn't a huge fan, but I convinced him. And so what we would do is we'd pack a picnic lunch and go around Central Park, see the park on the scooters, and then stop and have the lunch. And we were social distance, sitting outside, doing something different. So that was kind of great.
Mm-hmm.
But then finally, after like a couple of attempts at a staycation where I tried to take time off work but still be in New York, didn't work. So we finally, in March 2021, came to Florida on vacation and escaped the cold. And somehow we ended up buying a house here, and that became our permanent residence, and we moved. So it's been great. But yeah, COVID was tough, and I'm very happy that um, we're going somewhat back to more. We certainly have in the last 6 months or something, but I'm seeing a little bit of a pullback with the latest variant and people like me getting COVID again. But yeah, it's taught us a lot. I'm actually, I think humanity and the way, both in the workplace and beyond, people have been really reflective over what's important to them during this time. And it's brought a number of us closer together as a result of that. So I try and see the positive where I can.
Mm-hmm. Wow, yeah, it was a tough season. So we went through COVID, but we came out on the other side, and here we are. And still, at the same time, even when we came out, Victoria is going through COVID right now as we speak. Now, that's life. And you, whoever is listening, whoever is watching, I don't know what you're going through. We actually don't know what challenges you're facing right now. But we would like to remind you that in the past, you've been through some things and came out shining on the other side. Now, I wish that whatever it is that you're going through right now, you're going to overcome it. You are going to overcome the adversity that you're going through. And especially once you go and apply the tips that were given to you by Victoria today on this show. So I hope you took notes down. So go and read them, go and apply them, and come out smiling because you can. We really thank you, Victoria, for taking your time to be with us here. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, we are just about to go, but before we go, we'll ask you to share with us how can we reach you?
Best way to get me is on my website, which is victoria-pelletier.com. Same spelling as my last name. Thank you for putting it up there. That's great. Find me there. It'll take you out to all my other social channels, or if all else fails, I'm sure you could just Google me.
Yeah, so go connect with Victoria and she'll tell you rather more of what she did not tell us here. Connect with her. And yeah, that's about it. We've come to the end of the show. But before we go, we'd like you to leave us with a few words, just a few words that we should always remember. What are those few words that you should go ring in our own minds?
Well, I will leave you with one of my most favorite quotes, and it's by George Adair, and it says, "Everything we've ever wanted lives on the other side of fear." And I love that because that's something that I constantly sit with when I think about my own unstoppable journey, overcoming all these obstacles and adversity. A lot of what we fear is rejection or pain that comes from all of this challenge. And I think we can be the CEO of Victoria, right, to make the decisions for how we move forward and live our own unstoppable journeys, just like all of your listeners can.
Thank you very much for those beautiful words. Yeah, it's the other side of fear. You've got to go through it. You got to keep on moving. Whatever it is that you're going through, keep on moving. Don't stop. Don't give up. Just keep on moving. And whatever it is that you fear, you can overcome it. Just go ahead. This has been Now Tell Us. Our guest today was Victoria Pelletier. And I'm your host, Anthony Murore. And together with my guest, we are saying bye for now. Until next time, bye.